what's going on? How
What up,
are you?
man? How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for doing this.
Of course, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of people about you, so
I heard.
yeah, it's all good. It's a great story. That's
I
why
appreciate it.
it's a fascinating story. So
Thank you so much.
yeah. So, but I do want to start though with the current right now, and so what you're going through right now, because everybody wants to know is, when is he going to become this at tight end? So, what is the transition like early on right now?
Right. It is. I think as any sport, it doesn't matter how athletic, how strong, how fast you are. There's always the fundamentals, right? Like Kobe Bryant used to always talk about the fundamentals in basketball. And Kobe sometimes wasn't the most well, he was a very gifted athlete, but he was the most fundamental athlete. Same with Michael Jordan, right? In basketball. And when you look at football, there are so many fundamentals that I have to learn. And Coach Pete, our tight end coach, he's helped me tremendously. He's taking me back to day one. This is how you start playing football, right? This is the terminology. And of course, I'm sitting in meetings and certain things go over my head just because I just don't know what they mean. Like if you move to a new country and they speak a different language, you will not be able to communicate very well the first day.
Correct.
Right. But I'm a fast learner and I'm going to put in the work. So it's been about sitting many hours and studying many hours, a lot of hours, just sitting on a table, trying to figure out different defensive fronts, right? Because every play might change a little bit based on the front that you get. So if you initially told me that if you have a defensive end inside of you, you have to go block him, but then all of a sudden he moves outside of you. Now, do I still have that defensive end, or do I have to go, to the linebacker and try and get him? So that's what I'm going through right now. Just understanding my assignment, understanding my role, and understanding the fundamentals of the game, which is something that it might take a little bit, right?
It might.
But one thing I know I can do, and one thing I know I have, is the energy, the attitude, and the effort, right? And I'm gonna be prepared. I'm gonna come to practice prepared, and of course I'm gonna make mistakes, right? That's inevitable. I'm gonna make mistakes, a lot of them probably, right? But I'm gonna get it down because it's a matter of effort. And I've already seen so much improvements when it comes to just understanding the game. Watching a lot of film with coach, extra hours, the weekends, and really focusing on those little things that make a big difference, right? Hand placement. Where do I want to put my hands when I strike, right? What is my footwork, right? If it's a gap scheme, what's the first step that I gotta take, right? I didn't know those things a week ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't know them. So I'm learning, but I think it's gonna take some time. But coach thinks that I'm gonna get there, and I know I'm gonna get there. So it's just a matter of how fast I can pick it up.
As a receiving tight end, because what you're talking about a lot too is blocking.
Yeah.
As a receiving tight end too, because you can run a route and all that. How much are you still in your head a little bit cluttered with? Do I cut here? Do I get to here and then cut? Like what has that process been like for you so far?
Right. It's still been I think route running is a little bit more clear, right? Run to 12 yards, break down, get out at 14, and then get friendly with the quarterback. Okay, we have a dig. Cool. I understand that. That's a 6 route. But then they bring out different concepts, and depending on whether the middle of the middle of the field is closed or open, you might have to bend it. If you have a man on you and somebody's got man to man, you might have to bend it even more. So those things I think are easier when it comes to route running, but there's still fundamentals and different things coming out of breaks. Getting your pad level down and trying to get out with as little steps as you can, giving a little something at the top of the route to create separation. So those things are things that I'm understanding. But of course, if someone is guarding me that I just or there's a different front that I haven't seen, I have to still get a feel for the game, right? There's some things that and there's some things that you feel, right? If you give me a piece of paper and you show me it's the middle of the field, open or close, it's open, right? But once you get in there, you have to
Right.
feel, right? So that feel is what I'm getting, and I think that's going to come very quickly because I'm really understanding
And that's, and I tell people too, like, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It
that.
does
No,
take time. It
of
could
course, of
take,
course,
this is a few year process to get to where
yeah,
you need to go.
of
Um,
course,
but I do want to go back to the origins of your story. And when you're 14 years old, getting on a plane, you don't know the language, you're
yeah,
going somewhere foreign. What is that like?
yeah. That's it's very difficult, right? Going, it's I think it was because I had that experience at such a young age. This doesn't feel like it's a threat to me. Like learning football, it's hard, right? Especially if you never played a game ever, and then the first game that you play is against NFL players, right? And as you guys know, our defense is great, right? So that's the first time you play. Of course, it's gonna be hard. But like I said, coming into this country at such a young age, not being able to speak the language, not being able to understand the culture, people are very different here than what they are from where I'm from, right? Culturally. And being able to navigate that at such a young age, I think it prepared me for what this is, right? This is not as hard as that. That was way harder, right? At least now I understand what people are saying when they talk to me. You know what I mean? Even like there are certain terms that I still don't know. At least I understand the language. At least I know the culture, right? But at that age, 14, not being mature enough to, because no one is prepared at 14 to leave home. I don't care what my story was. As if my story ended up being a good one, right? And a story of like I was able to figure it out. But there were many times where it would have been very easy for me to go a different route, right? Because being at that age, not having parents around, making mistakes, right? We haven't talked about those much, but I made some mistakes, because I didn't have the wisdom that I have now, and I was in a different country, free, no parents, so I made mistakes, right? But I learned from them, from all of them, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, the great memories. You learn from those things. And being 25 years old now and going through this process, even though it's hard, it's very manageable because of what I went through at 14, if that makes sense.
And we all make mistakes growing up. I
Of course,
made them. Everybody made them.
of course.
Were there some that stood out to you when you look back that you can share?
I think there's a few that I'd rather not share.
I'm with you on that one, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, and I trust you. So there's a few that I'd rather not share. The ones that I do um, want to share, one that I would like to share. Right, this one I gotta be careful. I gotta think about this one.
Okay.
'Cause, maybe um, I think probably the biggest mistake, and this one might be like an obvious one, but the biggest mistake was probably not listen to people that had the experience to look into the future for what they saw was possible for me. I thought I knew better. I thought I had the talent to make the NBA, right? Whereas when I lived with Steve Rifkin, all he talked to me about was playing football, right? And
I've heard.
I didn't listen. I didn't listen, right? And I'm honest, and I told every time I see him, he thinks I'm a dumbass for not listening to him before. Like he said, you'll be playing by now, right? You would have been in the league for a few years by now. Um, but I think sometimes older people and the people the closest to us, can see the talents that sometimes we can't even see in ourselves because we've never been exposed to those things. I
Right.
was in love with basketball. I was in love with being a basketball player. I wanted to make the NBA. That was my only dream. And probably I would have been upset if I didn't try all the way,
Sure.
the basketball dream all the way through. I would have been like, damn, what about my basketball career? Where could that have taken me? Now I realized that it wasn't going to go anywhere, right? I could have been a basketball player, overseas or in Chile or continue playing for the national team. But my dream was the NBA. My dream wasn't to be a professional basketball player overseas. I wanted to make the NBA. So I think not listening to the advice that I received at a young age when it came to sports was probably a big mistake that I made. You know, I would have been very happy now, you know, 3, 4 years into the league, knowing the game of football a little bit better.
But you also have to be ready to make that move too. Just because others are doesn't mean you are.
Of
But
course.
were there some other mistakes that, without even saying what they were, where you look back and say, I made, at this time, I made this decision because maybe if I don't, I go this way, but because I made this decision, I went this way.
In like a good or a bad way.
You clearly end up in a good way. So
Yeah.
whatever decision you made have put you on a good path.
Yeah.
But were there sometimes where you have that choice where, because again, you're by yourself, that
Yeah.
you say, boy, I know looking back, if I had made this decision, I'm going a different direction.
Yeah. I think and this one is tough because I think, you know, as a 18-year-old, right? I thought I knew a lot more than I did at the time, right? And I'm still really young. There's still so much that I have to experience and learn and grow, right? I don't think I'm anywhere near uh, to become the man I know I could be, right? But at 18, I thought I was great. Or 17, I thought I was the greatest thing in the world. You know, I was a very good basketball player. I led the team in points, rebounds, assists, blocks, dunks. Right? I'm a very highly known player in the state of Florida. Um, I was the #1 recruit coming out of Chile, right? I was one of, at the time I had probably, you know, my junior year in high school and senior year, I had over 20 25 Division 1 offers for basketball. So I thought I was great, right? Not knowing what the future was gonna, you know, I think I always say, and I don't know if anybody else has said this before, but if you're not humble, life will humble you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if somebody else has said that or not, but that's the way I see it. And at the time I wasn't humble, right? And then life humbled me, right? Getting to college and being behind 2 NBA players and not being able to see a court much, you know, because, you know, Cameron Reynolds and Melody Frazier, 2 NBA players that we had, were a lot better than I was, you know? And so not being able to play much and being frustrated with my basketball career in that sense was very humbling. And then I think that's something that I saw. Like I wish I would have I work my ass off. I've always worked my ass off. I think that's what makes me. But I wish I understood better, like the level of um, competitiveness that I was going to get myself into. And at the time, maybe I didn't know. You know?
When you're on that plane, are you scared coming here for the first time?
No, I've always been very brave. Um, like I've never, I don't feel fear very often. I don't think I feel fear. Like the things that scare me is one day getting up and getting a call that something happened to my family. That scares me, right? But the things that I've always had to do, like I don't feel that type of fear, and I can say that very confidently,
Why
right?
not?
Um, my parents, the way they raised me. I remember, or I hear stories from my dad all the time. As a very young kid, he'll have me walk around and I'll fall, you know, one learning how to walk, a few months old, and my dad wouldn't pick me up off the ground. And I always hear this from him. And he thinks that's the best thing he could have ever done because I always had to get up by myself. Right. Or sometimes, like I remember one time he said one time he remembers where they were at the mall with me and I started crying and they just left me there crying. And of course, after 30 seconds, you start looking at your parents, they're not there, you know, and then he thinks that the way they raised me ingrained something in my brain that just like limit the fear. So I had no fear, but I was eager to get here. I was, you know, where I'm from is not, it's not a very good place, right? There's not that many opportunities. There's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of things that I don't want to be around. And if I would have stayed in Chile, you know, maybe I would have been around those things a lot more. I came here and I play sports, very different life, you know. So
Yeah.
I know, like, I had no fear. I had no fear. I just sat there. I talked to myself. I cried. I remember I was sad, right? Because I didn't know the next time I was going to see my mom, my dad, my friends. But I was ready.
when did you feel comfortable speaking English? How long did that process
It
take?
was about 6 months. 6 months, and
How did you learn it?
crazy. I think what really helped me was writing every word, at least trying to write every word that I heard, even if it was misspelled, right? Even if I didn't spell the word correctly, and then going back to the dictionary and actually going through and see if I can find the exact word, and then translating and writing it down. Because I didn't have like a personal tutor or a teacher or someone that taught me. Like I remember the first time I had a class, they put me in the middle of a math class, and the next day that I got to the States, I was in a math class with regular high school students my freshman year. And I was sitting around there like, what the hell is going on? Like the only thing I know is the numbers that I see on the board. You know what I mean? But I think when you're that age, you pick things up a lot quicker than when you get older, just because I was forced to. It was survival for me. I had to. And in the beginning, I remember now that I look back, I probably messed up so many words, but I didn't care because I had the confidence to talk. 'Cause sometimes whenever we try other languages, I feel like people get self-conscious about speaking, and then they end up not learning, right? I think the only way, same with football, right? The only way for me to learn is to be out there. And if I make mistakes, I make mistakes, right? I'm not going to be perfect. It's impossible. When you learn a new language, you're not going to be perfect. So you have to be brave enough to put yourself in the situations that are going to force you to learn very quickly. Because Coach P always says, you make a mistake once, okay, that's a mistake. You make a mistake twice, that's a sin, right? That's what he tells me all the time. So that's ingrained in my brain right now, trying to not make the same mistakes that I made the first time.
And then you went to the school. How long was it? Were you when that school closed within a few months or whatever? How long were you on your own with your roommate before you moved to somewhere else?
Yeah. So it was when it was Westlake Prep. They closed, I don't know, 3-4 months into the time I got there. And then, as I said, it was a prep school. So everyone else left because everyone was 18, 19 years old. They were a lot of them were Americans. Other kids were from different countries. My friend Sebastian, who was also from Chile, who I got to live with for like 3-4 months in the beginning, he also left to a junior college. And I stayed we had an apartment complex, right? And we had an apartment in the apartment complex. And I stayed there by myself for, I'll say, 4 or 5 months, waiting for, or 4 months, waiting for the summer so I could play AAU basketball. Yeah. So that's the time where I had to just sit down and wait. And then that's when I found Each One Teach One, which is
Right.
actually a very well-known basketball team that I play for in the Nike circuit, right?
So when you're surviving in that time, how are you getting help? Who's giving you help?
Right. So I'll say once a week, the coach from the school, and I don't want to speak bad about them because they got me into the States. They gave me the visa that allowed me to come to the United States, and without them, I wouldn't be here today. So I will never say anything bad about them. But they swung by once a week, right? To sometimes with food, sometimes just to say what's up, and then the rest of that time I had to just figure it out. And then that's when, during that time, I started training. Somehow I got connected. I can't remember quite how I got connected with Coach Gray Rosenbelt, who is a guy who took, every weekend I'll spend the whole weekend with him because we were starting to play basketball. So, and not games or anything, just training. So after every session, he'll stop at McDonald's, and I had
I
five
heard.
bucks, $5 from a dollar menu, right? And that was heaven for me. That was perfect for me. That was like, wow, like I got $5 from the dollar menu. Like that's amazing. Like this is the greatest thing in the world. And then he'll help me with groceries and stuff, and then I'll get home, and that's what I had. And and sometimes I ran out of groceries, right? And I'm like, okay, what do I do now? And then I had to find a way. My dad was still sending me whatever was at the time, $50 a month, I think. So okay, I got $50. What do I do with $50? And I don't know if I've said this to you, but I always bought my protein shake, my proteins from, I think it was like some store, can't remember. But I had my protein shakes, and then it was trying to figure out what the next meal was. Sometimes, other times, I got lucky enough where I met a friend or something that they invited me over to eat. But there was a lot of times where it's like, okay, no breakfast, no breakfast. Let's go. Come on, we gotta go train. And I'll go and train, and then I'll come back and okay, now we can do lunch. We got $3. What's for lunch? Right. So that's how I figured it out, and that's how I went about it. It was kind of like a day by day kind of thing, week by week by week, at least during those 4 or 5 months. Then once we started playing AAU over the summer, things got a little bit better because Coach Gray was helping me out a lot more.
And what about the donuts?
Donuts, man. Those I think those are famous by now. Yeah, yeah. It was at the end of the night. I think it was about 8 p.m. or something. I'll go to the store, and the guy that for $1 he'll give me 12 donuts or whatever I wanted, really, because otherwise they'll throw them out because they couldn't sell them the next day. And once I figured that out, I'm like, okay, I'm eating donuts whenever I can, right? I'm gonna go get some donuts because between having a whole bunch of donuts or a can of beans, sometimes you gotta go with the donuts. So I'll go and I'll get my donuts, and I'll have food for the next 2 3 days. Yeah.
Can you still eat donuts?
No, I can't eat donuts anymore. I can't even see them. Can't eat donuts. And I eat very healthy now. I try to eat a very well balanced diet. So donuts are out of the picture by now.
Did your parents know the struggles that you were going through?
Not at that time. Not at that time. I don't think I didn't want to put that on them, right? That would have made them sad. So I think they fully understand this now. But at the time, I told them everything was great. I'm like, no, I'm doing great. No worries. Like, I'm going to school. Sometimes I wouldn't go to school, right? I'm, doing my thing. After school, I'll take the bus home. Sometimes in the middle of the day, I would just leave school to go home, and so I could train. And no, they didn't know. They had no idea what it was, and I felt like I wanted to tell them, but I knew if I did that, I could lose my chance of being here. So I didn't take that risk, especially with my mom, being the way she is. She would have told my dad to come get me, get back on the plane, let's go home, right? And that would have been it for me. I could have had if I feel like, and I truly feel this, if I opened my mouth and I told them what I was going through, probably none of this would have happened. None of this would have happened. They would not have taken a second chance at, me coming to the States. Like, I wouldn't be here. So I just know that's the way that it had to be. I had to stay quiet. I had to suffer so you can shine later.
Did you have to hide it from friends here, what you were going through? In terms of
Um,
like just emotions and all that?
oh yeah, for sure. Okay. First of all, I couldn't. I mean, I spoke English, but I couldn't explain myself very well. Like I had a thick accent, and I don't think 14-year-old kids at that time maybe understood what I was going through, right? Because and a lot of my teammates came from very humbling backgrounds as well, right? But at least they had, I don't know, a mom that was at the house that could take care of them, or a house or a place that was theirs or something. I feel like my situation was a lot different because my parents weren't here. So I knew I was responsible for every decision. I was responsible for every decision that I had to make. So, I couldn't really, and at that time, you don't want to seem vulnerable, right?
Right.
You don't want to, you're a kid. Like, you don't want to, all I wanted to do was play basketball. So, when I saw them was all talk about basketball.
And then there was the one time too, and I just a couple more, but there was one time when I guess the plane story where you get off the plane and I guess there was a mix up with the coach or your plane was late, whatever, and you couldn't contact him because you didn't have a phone.
All right.
What do you remember about that story? Because
Yeah.
everybody brings that up.
Yeah, no, that was crazy. I think, every time I think about this was probably one of the times where I was like, wow, like, because I was at this time, I was at St. Andrews High School. I wasn't living with Steve and Alex at the time. I was staying at the school. And I came, and I think I was held up by immigration because sometimes they do that, and sometimes immigration holds you up and you're waiting for 12 hours before you can get into the country. That happened to me multiple times, right? You get an immigration guy that doesn't trust your papers, and you're that age, and they put you in a room, no food, no nothing, for 12 hours, and you just got to sit there and wait until they let you through. And that happened to me multiple times. That happened, and that was real, and that was really hard because I'll just sit there and, wait for 12 hours for me to be allowed in the country, knowing that I was entering the country legally, that I had my passport, knowing that I had my I-20 for the school, and knowing, but they didn't see like a residence where I was living. So they were like, okay, where's this guy living during this time? And I'm like, I'm staying at the school. It's a boarding school. And sometimes they'll get those things confused. So they wouldn't let me in. And, that time they didn't let me in for like 12 hours. So the guy who was a person that worked for the school was supposed to pick me up and a few other kids at that time. And of course, I never passed security. So he left and I didn't have a phone. So how was it, and of course, I'm sure he cared that, where is this kid? Why is this guy not here? I'm sure it wasn't like, but he probably waited. I don't know. But then 12 hours go by and I wouldn't expect him to wait. So they finally let me through and I get out and it's late. And I'm in South Miami, right? I'm at the Miami airport. And I get a ride to, I think it's called the Tri-Rail or something like that, that takes you from South Miami to Boca Raton, Florida. So I get there, I take the metro from the subway from the airport, and I get there and I see the last train for the night leave or about to leave. So I take off running, I don't even pay for the thing. I just hop the fence with my two huge suitcases and I go there running. And as soon as I'm about to get down to the place where you have to board the train takes off. So that was it, right? And I had no idea where I was. Someplace, I think it was Hialeah. So I get out of there and I'm like, I go ask the people if there was another train coming tonight, and they said no. So I'm like, geez, what am I gonna do now? I try to find any other method of transportation, and I don't think there's any buses that go all the way from down south to north, Miami. So uh, I'm like, okay, I have nothing that I can do, no phone, no money, so maybe a few bucks. So I go and I go outside and I remember vividly there was a drive-through Wendy's that was still open, and I go through and I get myself dinner, right? Maybe like two burgers or something, and then I'm like, okay, I can't get home. So I remember there was a pharmacy. It was either a CVS or a Walgreens, and I go behind the pharmacy to eat my stuff because I didn't know where to sleep. I had no place to sleep. So I go back there. I had two towels with me. I throw the towels on the ground. I used, some clothing as pillows, and I slept there. I slept behind a Walgreens that night, waiting for the next train at 6 a.m. the next morning. So I had, and those things and stories like that, I had many, but I think that one was just tough because I really had no one or no way of communicating, and I had no one to call to go get me from the airport. So, I had to just suck it out, sleep outside. And then next morning I was good. And then I remember the next morning I got to the train station and I think I had run out of money because I probably ate it all. I was starving. And then I had to walk. I promise you, it was like at least 15 miles with two bags, two suitcases, 10 to 15. It must have been 10 miles at least, or at least it felt like 10 miles. I don't know, with my two suitcases walking to St. Andrews High School from the trial rail. And then I remember the library, the person that worked at the library, she saw me and she's like, what the hell are you doing here? I'm sweating, no shirt on. And she like gave me a ride to school for the last like mile and a half. I remember that.
Wow, man, that's
That one was tough.
that one's unique too.
Yeah.
Just two more questions. The Rifkin
Yeah.
family, you started living with them, and how much did that help kind of further your transition here?
Living with Steve and Alex.
Yes.
Oh, that was like, that was amazing. And now it was beautiful. Like they took such good care of me. They were, up until this day, Steve's like a second dad to me and Alex is like my brother. Right. But at the same time, like going from not having anything to having a solid family environment, it's also very complicated, right? There's like things that people don't understand. I went from the poorest school from the at the end of the bottom of the schools in Florida to one of the richest, which was St. Andrews. So getting acclimated to kids whose parents were all CEOs of different companies, and I'm in the middle with shorts and some shoes that I can't even tell you the brand, and everybody else is wearing ties and clothes and Gucci shoes to school, and some of the guys drive BMWs and Mercedes to school, and I'm there and I don't even have a car, and I don't, and I'm like, I wear the same clothes to school every day. That was a challenge too, because you take a kid from, and it was clear that I didn't belong there. Like at least like at the time I felt like that. What's going on? I don't belong here. What's going on? Kids will go to dinners on the weekends and they will go, to fancy dinners, and I'll just tag along. And, most of the time good friends will pay for me, but it was hard. But, living with Steve and Alex and the lifestyle that they live, they took such a good care of me. Like I have nothing negative to say about any of them, or Nicole Rifkin, who's Steve's former or ex-wife. They took care of me. They took such a good care of me, and they became my family to me. So that was great. That was awesome.
Last thing, given everything you just said, do you think and you kind of already touched on this a little bit, but the fact that you're in this position now and your confidence, how much does that confidence stem from, hey, look what I've already survived?
That's it. That's without those experience, I don't think I'll have the guts, the balls to, for lack of a better word, to do what I'm doing. Imagine, whenever someone starts at a job, no one is expected to do the job properly day one, because you just don't know, regardless of what job it is. And I know for a fact that a lot of the people out there, they expect me to be perfect day one. They're like, here comes Sammis Reyes, he's going to score 10 touchdowns. And I'm basically literally just trying to learn new plays and like, what the hell those zone blocking mean, right? So at the same time, I know that the mind, right, or the mind that I have developed, the calluses that I have developed, or the resilience that I have developed in my brain is what's going to get me through. And I'm going to come out on the other side. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know if it's going to be 5 months, a year, 2 years, but I'm going to get on the other side, and it's going to be an amazing story, because I can see it, I can visualize it. I know that's what's going to happen. It's just a matter of how quickly I can get there. Right. And but one thing that I keep on telling everybody is like, there's nothing harder than what I have already been through. Like nothing can top that for the rest of my life. And I think that's what gives me this mindset that like, I'm never going to be afraid for a challenge, because I already did the hardest thing of my life. Nothing else is going to be harder than that. I doubt it. And if something hard comes up, a death or something that's unexpected, it's going to be hard. But I've developed my mind. I've trained my mind to think in a way that I know it's going to get me to the other side of this. And then maybe a year from now, you and I will be sitting here having a conversation, and it'll be a very different conversation, right? We might be talking about a game or something else, or who knows. But that resilience, the struggles that I went through made me an extremely resilient person. I'm going to be relentless with this. I'm going to try until I get it. I'm not going to let myself fail. There's no doubt in my mind, zero doubt. So I think that those experiences from that very early age developed this mindset that it's just nothing can penetrate. I don't care how many times I get yelled at. The coach might yell at me 100 times. What the hell are you doing? And he has. I've been yelled at in the middle of practice by my coach, and I love it. I take it and I'm like, yes, sir. No, sir. No excuse, no explanation. I got you, coach. I'm sorry. If I fucked up, I'm sorry. I got you. Next time I'll get it right. I promise. And I go out there with the same enthusiasm, the same attitude, and the same determination to get it right the next time. And I might mess it up again, but nothing in my mind state is going to change. That's what I love in the place where I am mentally right now.
That's awesome. I greatly appreciate this and really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for sharing all this. And also, Pete Hainer is very, very colorful, and he says things that are a lot stronger than hell. So
I love the guy though.
I wish they would mic him up, and it would be fantastic.
Maybe it will just be a whole bunch of beeps throughout.
That's okay. It would still be great. So, but listen, man, I appreciate this. It was great.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So much, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.